Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to Cheap Air's Off-Grid Ways, a homestead in the desert. I've been out here today doing a few things. I've been having birds getting in here daily, and I couldn't figure out how that was happening. Well, remember I mentioned I had to patch some holes over here. Well, it was pulled away from the wall right there, and they were just flying right in. Go figure. They figured it out just like the door of a birdhouse, and they just come right on through. So I got a piece of the scrap wire I cut down from this inside wall when I did the room extension, and I went out there and I stapled it in place. I'm going to go back and put some wood cleats over the top of it to make sure it holds in place. But got a few other things I had to do, so I got onto those. Now, one of the things I'm going to do, and when Rockhopper was out here, he asked, well, after he left, he asked me how I get water pressure out here. Well, I've got a diaphragm pump right there. It's a 12-volt diaphragm pump that you would usually find in a RV or something like that, or, in your camper. And I've got it hooked up on a toggle switch right here. And then inside this box, I have a Harbor Freight battery and a Harbor Freight charge controller. And then up there on the roof, I've got a 25 watt Harbor Freight solar panel. Now, when I come out here to do any work with my power tools, I've got to park my van right there, and I've got to run an extension cord in. If I leave the door open, critters slip in. So what I was doing was I was feeding it through the hole in the screen right there and putting my extension cord over there so I can plug in my power tools. But here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that I've got an extra LiFePO4 battery, and I'm thinking this box is okay for what I've got going here, but I need something a little bit bigger. So I'm thinking about modifying and putting a bigger box in here. It goes all the way to the ground. Then I can put the pump inside of that. I can put the switch inside of there, because this little makeshift cover I put on here doesn't really protect it from the rain if the rain is sheeting in this way. So I can do a little bit of modification on here. Now, if I make that bigger cabinet go all the way to the ground, then I can put the larger battery in there, and I can take that little unit off of there. I have a couple of extra 100 watt solar panels that I took off of my van when I upgraded that. And I can modify this whole system, put a new solar system in here with a 120 volt outlet with an exterior electrical box, so I can plug in a cable if I had to, or an extension cable, and run my power tools without having to open the door or punch a hole through the screen to let the wire come through. So I'm thinking that's going to be a really good thing to do. And I can actually run a cord underneath that overhead there all the way down and drop down that center post where I got my broom and that little handly rototiller hanging there, and put another electrical box right on that unit. And then I could bring lights out of here. If I had to come out in the nighttime, I can put lights here that I could just flip a switch and I'll have lighting out here. So I'm thinking about doing that. That's one of the next in line plans. So yesterday I went to one of the old grow areas and I got a bunch more potting soil in my trailer. There's still more there, but I didn't want to bring too much because I didn't need that much until I build more planter boxes, and I don't have more planter boxes built because I don't have materials. And I don't have materials because I don't have the money to buy them. So I did fill this in, and I added some radish plants here. I did 3 rows of radish plants on top of here. And we'll see how that goes. So it's all been watered and ready to go. Got my summer squash in. I got my yellow crooknet there and my zucchini over here. I showed you that in another video. But down here, dum-dum-dum-dum, I got my jalapeno plants started in there. So it should be 5 of them total. But the 2 in the back were real tiny in the starters. I just planted them anyway to see if they come up a little stronger. But I got 3 plants here anyway. And I put a couple of basil babies in there, a couple of little basil plants, because basil isn't really a very good companion plant, although it won't hurt growing next to peppers. But what it does is it keeps away certain insects that you don't want. And moths are one of those insects. Usually this time of year we're starting to get invaded by moths. I've seen 3 so far. And I don't want to have what I had last year and the year before, where this whole inside was just full of moths. So planting some basil. Now basil goes great as a companion plant with tomato plants. It's an excellent companion plant for tomatoes. It makes them taste better, it makes them grow better, and you just be real happy. So you see the little holes I got in here. I got basil in each one of those little holes, okay? So those were all the basils that I started. And this one's got like 3 or 4 basil plants in it, but I'll let them get stronger before I decide to separate them out. And I'll just transplant them in another place. But that's one thing about tomatoes. Now, I've got blossoms on some of these tomato plants. See them up there at the top. And I got some on that one over there, and they're starting to come out. Now, I'm going to give you a recipe for a homemade tomato plant fertilizer. Something you can make in your house, your cabin, or whatever. Set it aside. And the thing is with this tomato fertilizer, don't use it when you first plant the tomatoes. The tomatoes have to accept their location and start setting their roots in the soil before you use this fertilizer on them. And then once you use it, you'll see rapid growth and lots of blossoming and that stuff. So without further ado, let's move over here. So what you need is an empty 1-gallon plastic container where you can put it in. This is the recipe that I used. I figured this would be the easiest way to show you how to do this. So you're going to use 2 tablespoons of bone meal. That you can buy at any one of the big box stores in their garden center. Okay, it's got a very high middle number on your NPK. The P is way up there. I think it's like 17. All right. Then you need 1 tablespoon of baking soda, not baking powder, baking soda. 1 tablespoon. Then 2 tablespoons of powdered egg shells. And what's that? Well, you save some of the egg shells from the eggs that you have for cooking, baking, eating, whatever. You wash out the insides, get any residue of egg that's left in them, and then let them dry out. And then you can put them in a plastic bag and pulverize them to heck if you want. But I find it easier just throwing them in a blender and powdering them in a blender, because you want it to be a powder, not chunks. Now I've got some over here that I did. Okay, and that's basically what you want right there. That fine powder is what's in there. So you put those things into the container here, and then add water until it's almost to the top. All right. Now, it's only those 3 ingredients, 4 with the water. Let it dissolve for a day. Okay, it's got to sit for a day and let it mingle in the water. Then you're going to shake it before you use it the first time, because the eggshell will all have settled out to the bottom. Okay, now you're going to add this to the base of your plants after the rooting has taken. Don't do it before they've set their roots, okay? That damages the roots, and you're probably going to kill your plants if you do it too soon. And then every 2 weeks, add some more. Now you only need about a cup of this per plant. So you don't have to use a heck of a lot of it. Right at the base of the plant. Don't put it on the leaves or the green part of the plant. Just put it into the soil at the base of the plant and let it get down to the roots. And you'll be amazed. You'll see. I'm going to be using this tomorrow, because I watered everything today, so it's plenty wet. And I don't want to put this on while the soil is soaking wet. It's just going to water the fertilizer down. All right. So that's done. Now I got to do some more watering in here. But I'm thinking my fig tree is really doing well. And fig can be grafted onto mulberry. Okay, now I have a male mulberry tree outside over there by the chicken coop, and I'm growing that for a shade area. But I'd like to throw a graft of fig onto that tree and see if I can get that to take, and then I can grow figs out there too. Of course, that probably won't be such a good idea with the way the mice and rats and that stuff want to get to the figs. And I'll just have to do some research to make sure the figs aren't hazardous to dogs, because the dogs get to that tree, and I don't want to poison the dogs putting a fig tree out there. And you see my peach tree there, the leaves are turning yellow at the bottom. All right, that's because I've been overwatering it. Remember, peach trees don't like wet feet. So you don't want to keep the ground soaking wet. I just don't come in sometimes, I forget what I'm doing. I'm watering all the other things, and I water that one. I should skip that one every 2 waterings and go to everything else instead. All right. So this is still alive up here. It's plenty flexible. So that's a Bartlett pear. I'm going to leave it there. But I'm thinking about I might do another Bartlett pear graft right in here somewhere and see if I can't get that going, because I do want a Bartlett pear on here. Now I can cut that quince branch off of there and graft into that. That might be a possibility, but because this thing is got 3 grafts on it, or 4 grafts on it, and it needs the strength to feed those grafts, so I may not mess with it this year and do it next year. But I'll get Bartlett onto there, because I love those Bartlett pears. And I've got them on that tree already, and I've got them on that tree already, so they're doing just fine. All right, well, I'm probably gonna take a break from all of this catch-up gardening and that, and go out and do a exploration trip out in the desert and see what I can get from exploring out there. Maybe do some metal detecting or prospecting or something like that. Who knows? I'm going to give it a try. Oh, one more thing about the garden. Here's a neat little trick for you guys that are out there, and you gals, of course. You notice that I put the visqueen over the garden this year. That holds a lot of the moisture in instead of it just evaporating off from the hot, dry weather. So it's saving me water that way. So when I was going to plant the tomatoes, I just used my knife and I cut circles out, large circles out to plant the tomato plants. And when I was doing the basil, I didn't need holes that big. So I took this can, and this vegetable can, and I put a screw through into this board with a 45-degree angle cut on it. Then I heated it up with my little propane torch, and I reached out and burnt a hole in the plastic at all of the basil points. That's why they look all nice, neat little round holes. Neat little trick. And you could do it with a number 10 can for your larger plants like that and get the same effect. But another thing that I used to do is I had them had one set up with a piece of screen I could put in there. It was not regular screen. It was like expanded metal or expanded steel sheet, and it would fit tight in the can. So what I would do is set the can like this and put 2 charcoal briquettes in there, hit them with a little charcoal lighter and light them and get them going. And then I'd press that that metal screen in there to hold them in place. Once they got hot, they kept the can nice and hot. So I could turn it over and I could just start burning holes as fast as I wanted without having to stop and reheat the thing with my little propane torch every time. But I was in a rush today, so I didn't make up a new one with the screen. And I've got some expanded steel around I could use to make it. So I'll make one of those and I'll show it on What Is It Wednesday one of these days. But forget what I told you so you don't know what it is when I do the What Is It Wednesday, right? All right, everybody. Questions and comments below. I will be relaxing later on. I got to go start the rice for the dog food for their supper because they'll be eating about an hour. And little ladies outside, and it's been quiet out here all day, so they're all taking naps like they're supposed to. Good little dogs. And we got a little wind blowing. This is G Bear, signing off.